this week's Technique Tuesday video, I'll demonstrate the toe-up version of the classic wedge toe for socks. If you'd like to jump right to a specific point in the video, you can tap or mouse over the video playback area of the screen to reveal the chapter titles and starting points of each section. I want to start with an overview of this particular sock toe shape. If you want to jump right to the demonstration, you can use the chapter links that are at the bottom of the playback bar here. So the wedge toe is kind of a trapezoidal shaped toe. It's been the most popular sock toe shape for at least 100 years, became very popular in World War I. These corners that you see here do round out over time. This sock is fresh off the needles, hasn't been washed. Washing will relax the fabric, and wearing the sock will also cause it to be rounded. This toe shape does not expect that your foot is shaped this way. You can see this sock, which was knit a few years ago, it was knit in a cuff down construction, but it was the same toe shape, and it has rounded over time after wearing, and you can see on my foot that it fits my toes just fine. You've got two lines of decreases here, and when you're wearing the sock, one of those lines of decreases is coming up the side of the big toe, and then this straight part across here, and then the other line of decreases just creates a single span of fabric that comes down the entire side of your foot here. So again, your foot isn't expected to be this shape in order to wear this sock. You can see when I put this sock on for the first time, which it has not been washed and it has not been worn before, you can kind of see those little corners. But again, once you wear these, that is going to round out and it's not going to be an issue. Like all sock toes, there is a formula for how to create and shape this particular toe. The basic construction method of this is to use a closed cast on, where you cast on about 1/3 of the total number of stitches that you're going to need for the foot. And then you alternate a plain round with an increase round until you have the total number of stitches that you need. Every increase round has 4 increases. If you think of 1/2 of the sock as the instep or the top of the foot, and the other half of the round as the sole or bottom of the foot, for each half of your round, you're going to place an increase inside the first stitch and inside the last stitch, and you'll do that for both halves of the round. The cast on number should be about 1/3 of the number of stitches that are going to be used for the foot. If the number of stitches you need for the foot is a multiple of 4, then you need to start with a multiple of 4 stitches because you will be adding 4 new stitches each time, and so that will get you to the right number eventually. If you need a number of stitches that is an even number but it's not a multiple of 4 stitches, then you need to start with a stitch count that is also an even number but not a multiple of 4 stitches. In my case, I'm going to need 56 stitches altogether. 1/3 of that is 18.7. The closest even number is 18, but that isn't a multiple of 4, and so that isn't going to work as my stitch count. So I either need to go down to 16 or up to 20. To start the wedge toe, you need a closed cast on. You can either use the Turkish cast on, you can use the figure 8 cast on, or you can use Judy's magic cast on. That is what I'm using. If you are not familiar with any of these cast on methods, I would encourage you to practice them first. I have links to video tutorials on each of the different methods down in the video description. I've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Once we have our 10 stitches on each needle, then we need to work a setup round. It's a plain round. If you are using figure 8 cast on or the Turkish cast on, you will need to do a full round, all 20 stitches. If you are using Judy's Magic Cast On, as I am here, you need to just work across the 10 stitches on the first needle, and that will finish your setup round. If you work a full round of the figure 8 or Turkish cast on, or half a round of Judy's Magic Cast On, you will end up at the same place, which is that you will have one row of stitches between these two needles, and that is your setup round. Now it's time to do the first increase round. So I do knit with the yarn in my left hand. I will show you the one place where things might make a difference if you hold the yarn in your right hand. I'll do the first increase using my left hand, and then I'll do the second one using my right hand so you can see the difference. For each half of the round, of the increase round, you're going to work the first stitch on the needle as a regular knit stitch, and then you are going to work a yarn over. So you're just bringing if you hold the yarn in your left hand, you're just bringing the needle underneath the yarn, and that creates a yarn over on the needle. Then you are going to knit until there's one stitch remaining. And then you are going to do another yarn over. So you would just, again, bring the needle under if you hold the yarn in your left hand. If you hold the yarn in your right hand, then you just bring it around the needle in the same way that you would wrap for a regular stitch. Now you're going to repeat the process for the second half of the round. Knit the first stitch, do a yarn over, and then knit into the last stitch, and do another yarn over. After every increase round, we do a so-called plain round where we just knit the stitches, except that we need to deal with that yarn over. If we just knit the yarn over as a regular stitch, we'll end up with an eyelet. So when we work a plain round, we knit the first stitch, and then we look at the yarn over that's on the needle. And what we can see is that this yarn over is lying so that it's angled to the left. We want to end up with mirrored increases. So we want the increase at the beginning of the needle to angle to the left, and we want the increase at the end of the needle to angle to the right. So we're creating a twisted increase, just like a make one increase, only we're doing it by working a yarn over in one round and then working that yarn over so that it twists on the following round. And we want it to twist in the correct direction. So this one we want to angle to the left. The yarn over is lying on the needle to the left, and in order to ensure that we are working this so that it twists, the working needle needs to enter that stitch through the left, and the only way it can do that is through the back. So we are knitting this yarn over through the back loop, and then we end up, it's a little dark on there, but we end up with a twisted loop underneath the needle, and that is angled to the left. When we get to the end of the needle, we need to create one that angles to the right. So if you look at this, this is angling to the left. We want it to angle to the right. So the way that we can do that is we let it come off the needle, and then we swing around and capture it from the back. So we pick it back up on the needle. It's not going to cause any stitches to drop. It's not going to be a problem if it takes you a while to catch it. So it's angled to the right now. So this is set up so that it will create a right leaning increase. And the way that we have to work this so that it twists is so that the working needle is pointed to the right. And the only way that we can enter this so that it will twist while this is pointed to the right is to come through the front. So when we have the yarn over angled to the right, we need to knit it through the front of the work. And you can do that with the yarn in your right hand or the left hand. It doesn't matter which way you do it. And then you work that final stitch. We repeat this for the second half. We've got the left leaning yarn over. We want our working needle to point through the left. So it goes through the back to create the left leaning twist. And then we change this from leaning left to leaning right. We want it to point toward the center of the toe. We take it off and swing underneath in order to recapture it. And then we knit it. Whether the yarn is in the right or left hand, it doesn't matter as we knit the stitch, and then it twists to the right. Okay, so I'm going to go through the whole process one more time. I'll just talk it through as I do it. This is an increase round. We knit one, create a regular yarn over, knit until we get to one stitch remaining on the needle, and then we do another yarn over. Repeat for the second half of the round. And now we work the plain round. Knit the first stitch, knit the first yarn over through the back so that it twists left, and then remount this yarn over so that it leans to the right, and then knit it through the front so that it twists to the right. This process is repeated over and over again until you have the total number of stitches that you need on the needle. So you would work a yarn over round, and then you'd work a plain round where you are twisting the yarn overs as you knit them until you have your total number. So let's talk about how you keep track of whether you are supposed to be working a plain round or if it's an increase round. It is an increase round. If first of all, there's no yarn over on the needle, and you can see that there is a twisted stitch immediately below the needle. So both of those conditions must be true. There's no yarn over on the needle, and you have a twisted stitch under the needle. So it's time for a yarn over. So as I approach the end, I want to make sure that there is a twisted stitch under the needle. I'm going to work that. And then now I do my yarn over, because now you'll see there's a twisted stitch and then a regular stitch because we've had to work past that increase in order to create the new one. Okay, but what happens if you work that first stitch? There's no yarn over on the needle, and you see that the twisted stitch isn't right under the needle, it's 2 rows under the needle. What do you do then? Well, what this means is that you forgot to do a yarn over on the previous rows. So we can correct that right now by lifting that running thread that's between the 2 stitches. So we lift it up from front to back. You see how it's lying on the needle? To the left. Remember, we want this one to lie on the needle to the left. So if you were to lift it up from behind, it would be lying on the needle angled to the right, and you don't want that. So this first one we want to angle to the left, and then now we can work the yarn over as if it had been there already. So lifting it is like working the increase in this way is the traditional make one increase method. There's less slack between these 2 stitches so that it can change the tension on those 2 stitches, but it's perfectly fine in order to fix a missed yarn over. Now as we get to the end here, we see that we've got that twisted stitch below the needle, and then we've got the one under the needle. To correct that, we want to bring our needle behind that running thread in order to pick it up. And we see that it's lying on the needle angled to the right. And so we can now work that one in order to correct our mistake. So you may be wondering why I do a regular yarn over on the increase round, and then I take that yarn over off the needle and then remount it in order to create the right leaning increase. I do that for a couple of reasons. One is that I don't have to think about what kind of yarn over to do. So technically you can do a reverse yarn over rather than doing a regular yarn over and then remounting this later. You could do a reverse yarn over, which is bringing the yarn over the back of the needle like this. And then it's already sitting on the needle in the correct orientation on the following round when you need to work it so that twists. The problem that I often have with this is that I end up pulling this, this ends up getting pulled over the needle, and which makes it tight, and then I have to try to bring it back down in order to work it on the following round. If you can manage good tension while doing a reverse yarn over, then you can absolutely do that. I have trouble with this, and so my solution has been to just always do a yarn over and then remount the yarn over on the next round if necessary in order to complete the increase. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. For more videos on toe-up sock construction, check out these videos over here. I also have many videos on cuff down sock construction, and you can find my entire playlist of sock videos over here. If you have any comments or questions about today's video or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.